Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name is Cameron, and this is going to be a pretty special episode today. As you can see, I've got my old school wooden Cutty Sark crate next to me that has been handed down in my family for a couple of generations now, originally from my grandmother, who probably got it at a thrift store or an antique shop or something like that. But it's actually a pretty cool coincidence, what I'm about to tell you. So Lito Cortes is a member of the Whiskey Tube community, has been a humongous supporter of mine on many of my early live streams, and I just can't say enough about, how much it means to me for people to stick with me as I continue growing my channel and things like that. And Lito was kind enough to send me a couple of really neat Scotch samples, but one of them is a Cutty Sark from the 1970s. I don't have an exact date on that, but it's a 40% ABV Cutty Sark bottling from the 70s. My ears perked up when he told me this because I knew I had this crate that I've always just used for storage, and I've never owned a bottle of, the current day Cutty Sark because I've never heard great things about it. But I went to the store, I spent the $18.99 or whatever the heck this thing cost to grab a current day bottling so that I could do this comparison. Some of you might know that 2 months ago, maybe, I did a comparison between current day Johnnie Walker with a bottle that I had acquired of 1982 Johnnie Walker, both of those being the 12-year-old black label bottlings. That was a pretty cool comparison. I titled the video Breaking the Seal, not knowing that the Bourbon Junkies had a series with that title already, so these are not going to be called Breaking the Seal anymore. In fact, probably no seals will get broken because I'm not going to buy a bunch of Dusties. I don't have that kind of money. So instead of breaking seals, I'll just be opening sample bottles on this new series that's going to be called Then and Now. So I have a couple more of these videos in the works, but this Cutty Sark is going to sort of relaunch this series. So I'm really excited to try this for you today. I'm not going to do a bunch of history on Cutty Sark or anything like that. I want to get straight to the tasting. I'm trying to make a little bit shorter videos here, punchier videos with some more in-your-face rapid fire content. I need to continue getting videos out, and I'm getting bogged down by shooting and getting too involved in the editing process. So let me go ahead and pour this sample from the 1970s here. Today we are going to be using, didn't leave myself very much of that in the sample bottle. Ooh, might have to pour some back at the end of the video. Today we're going to be using Copita glasses, which I love to use for low ABV Scotch. I think it really, sort of accents the flavors a little bit better, brings the aromas out a little bit better because it's a smaller glass. I feel a little bit like a pirate having this wooden crate here. And I've lost my autofocus. This is awkward on a pre-recorded video. There we go, it's back. Okay, so let's go ahead and nose and taste these things and see what is going on here. Again, thank you so much, Lito, for these samples. This episode is dedicated to you. So we're going to start now with the current day bottling of Cutty Sark. All right, so this thing is really, really light on the nose. I mean, it just smells almost like grain neutral spirit in large part. And you can actually see here, got a really, really light straw color. And let me actually compare that right next to the older bottling. Just about the same. The older bottling might be just slightly darker here. Yeah, but this newer bottling, very, very light color. Really just that grain neutral spirit smell, ethanol, just unsupported, basically unsupported alcohol. There's no flavor underneath it, really. You do get a little bit of citrus in here, like some lemon zest, some of those confectionery sugar notes and vanillas that you would expect from a really, really light Scotch like this. Yeah, not a whole lot more to that. Just a really light citrus nose. It's abrasive. It's not that inviting unless you really stick your nose in, get past the alcohol, hang with it, give it more of a chance. But, if you just take a quick whiff of this, this is not something that you're going to be wanting to drink. This is definitely more of like a mixer Scotch, something you might put over ice. I don't know, just to kind of tame that. So, yeah, maybe a little bit of nuttiness in here too. Some of that kind of like monkey shoulder, Speyside type nuttiness that you get from some Scotches. But no distinct sherry influence or anything like that in here. This is a very light Scotch. All right, let's check it out on the palate here. Cheers. And almost tastes like water. It just tastes like a watered down, like Glenmorangie, but not as good. That's kind of what this reminds me of, like that real confectionery type flavor profile that you expect from Glenmorangie, but watered down to under 40% ABV. And that's about it. I mean, there's almost zero mouthfeel on this stuff. Not a good palate experience from front to back. No finish besides some ethanol kind of hanging on, a little bit of pepper spice and ethanol hanging on in the back of the throat here. I have one more sip, unfortunately. Yeah. Same kind of thing. It's like a white cake with vanilla frosting. You know, a little bit of lemon zest on top. Definitely that powdered sugar confectionery type note in there, that cake note. I mean, that's the strongest thing that this really has. And then again, slight nuttiness, less nuttiness for me on the palate, maybe a little bit more on the nose there. So, all right, not something I would buy. And I think I pretty much knew that going into it, and that's why I've never purchased one of these. But now let's go ahead and move to the 1970s edition of Cutty Sark. Really excited about this. You know, dusty scotches, dusty bourbons for me always have this sort of musty old bottle funk that is going on, and that could be from the 70s, the 80s. Some of them from 2015 have that old bottle type funk going on in there. So it's not a linear sort of thing that the older they get, the more funky they get by any means. It seems like it's random. Maybe it has something to do with the ingredients that were used, the equipment being cleaned. Like, I have no idea why that funk happens necessarily, but it's really interesting to find some of these dusties and smell things that you just don't get, you know, in the current day market. So here we go with the 1970s Cutty Sark. And there it is. That funk is sitting right on top, that warehouse funk, the old bottle thing. It smells like you're sort of in a room full of old books, old leather chairs. Not that there's a leather note in here, it's not that aged, but just that mustiness that you get from a room like that. Some people might say sweaty socks. I don't think it's sweaty socks. And if it is, I like sweaty socks. You heard it here first. Yeah, that funk sits right on top, but what's interesting is when you nose this a second time, a third time, even if you just put your nose in once and take a couple of little, you know, sniffs here and there, the funk dissipates very, very quickly on this. And I think it's because it's a low ABV. You know, it's Cutty Sark. We're not talking about like an old Glendronach or anything like that. So that dissipates very quickly, and you get right back down into the very thin Cutty Sark profile that's not so different, actually, than the present day bottling. Yeah, I mean, there actually smells like there could be a slight sherry influence in here, and I'm not sure what the blending was like back then. Seems like there could be a little bit of sherry in here, a little bit of, it's not peated, but a little bit of like Campbelltown funk. It actually reminds me of some of that similar funk that I got on the Johnny Walker 1982, but there are definitely those cakey notes underneath it, those confectionery, vanilla, and lemon type notes, citrus. That's definitely on the, you know, underneath the surface of this. So one more nose here, and then I'm going to go in for a taste. That's much, much better. There's still a slight hint of like that grain neutral spirit note in here, as you'd expect from a cheap blend, which honestly might not have been as low quality back in the 70s as it is today. There's actually some smoke on here. There's a little bit of peat smoke, probably that was blended in. I want to say there's like some severely refilled sherry cask influence in here, like maybe some sherried malts were blended in. It's nothing like that heavy Oloroso sherry that you would expect, you know, from a darker color, but you know, some of those like Glenfarclas type sherry notes when you get to the 25, the 21-year-old, and it's that refill sherry heaviness, but not necessarily in that really rich red sherry type way, if you know what I mean. And what really surprised me on the palate was the viscous mouthfeel at 40% ABV. You typically are not going to get something this viscous at that proof. It could just be that I'm putting it next to maybe the most watery whiskey that I've ever had in my life. But I do like the mouthfeel on this, all things considered, you know, on that 40% ABV. And it had a crazy amount of toffee and caramel notes, like in the mid palate. The supporting flavor in here is that really dense and rich caramel. All of those other flavors were sort of stacked around that funk, the citrus, the vanilla flavors, that slight sherry influence, and then the peat smoke. All of that sort of amplifies is amplified by that overarching caramel and toffee thing that sits right in the mid palate. So I really like this. It's not mind-blowing by any means, but I am so glad that I have the opportunity to try this. It's really, really cool and a great piece of history, and it kind of, you know, relates to this family heirloom here. So I'm gonna have another sip of the 70s Cutty Sark. And this time, as I get into the second sip, front of palate had some red fruits, like some stewed cherry fruits, actually. This is definitely a significantly more high quality blend, or significantly higher quality blend. I can't talk today, I'm so sorry, than the current day bottling. Oh, God, the current day bottling just smells like, it smells like pee. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's like someone peed on a white cake that has vanilla frosting and lemon zest. It's not lemon zest, it's pee. It's just not pleasant. Yeah, this other one, absolutely killer. Thank you so much, Lito, for sending me this sample. I think you cracked the bottle actually to get this sample out, so you probably have plenty of this left. Save it, cherish it, you know, share it with a few other people, but this is a really cool thing to own. I would be honored to own a bottle like that. I mean, it's really, really cool. So Lito, if you can, and if anybody else here has access to a 1970s Cutty Sark, put it next to the current bottling and let me know what you think. I always hear things about older blends in the whiskey world, in the Scotch world in particular, and just older bottlings in general being better. And I hate to be that way, but it seems like that's always true. Maybe that's just the accumulation of the old bottle effect, that funk that comes with these dusties. Or maybe it's the fact that better ingredients were used and it wasn't a mass-produced market, or as mass-produced as it is these days. So for what it's worth, this is an incredible pour for 40% for being a low-level blend. I love it. I'm going to cherish it. I've got a little bit left here. I think I'm going to pour this back into this sample bottle so that I can have a final sip for a special occasion. So cheers to all of you. Thank you, Lito, again. This is your episode, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. You know, send me an email if you have any whiskeys you would like me to review. Got to say all these good YouTube things, you know. If you have any samples you'd like to send in, hit me up and maybe we can arrange something. I am going live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time and doing a lot of collaborations now as my name continues to get into the WhiskeyTube community. Slowly but surely, I'm doing some collaboration, so I'm very excited about that. Thank you to everybody for all of the support. And until next time, I will see you later here on Drums and Drams. So cheers from me to you with this 1970s Cutty Sark, and hope you guys have a good week, good weekend, whenever the heck you're watching this thing. Can't take a final sip because I want to save this one, so see you all later. Thanks.